Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Footy Travellers Podcast.
Well, Sylvia and Jason, welcome to the show, and happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
I feel like I'm kind of like the justice of the peace. I'm like, Sylvia and Jason, we are like renewing your vows here. We are all gathered here, but that's not what we're doing here. So I wanted just to, bring this forward and say happy Valentine's Day to Colin as well. I love you, mate.
Oh, I love you.
All right. Enough of us. This is about Sylvia and Jason. Okay. So thank you for joining us for the Footy Travelers' first Valentine's Day episode, and really kind of our first holiday-themed episode overall. So, no pressure to set the tone or help us determine if this is a good idea carried forward or not. So can you kind of tell us just a little bit of a backstory around sort of where both of you as individuals grew up before this sort of fateful day that you're going to explain to us?
Sure. So I am from Hillsborough, North Carolina. It is right between Durham and Chapel Hill. Great place to grow up. Went to high school there, went to college at UNC Wilmington, and eventually became a Marylander.
All right. And Jason?
I grew up in a small town in southern Maryland, about 30 minutes south of Annapolis, Maryland. Lived there, went through grade school, middle school, high school, went to college at Salisbury University, which is also in Maryland, more coastal near Ocean City, Maryland, which people are familiar with. And then after college, ended up in the Annapolis area, which is where I was when Sylvia and I met.
All right. And so were either of you soccer players or soccer fans while growing up prior to meeting each other?
Yeah, definitely. I started, everybody in my hometown started playing sports in middle school, and it's just what you did. So I played soccer in high school. It was fun. It wasn't very competitive, but I loved it. It was a lot of fun.
I was really into it. Oldest of three boys, and whole family was really into it. Being in such a small town, looking back, was probably a little aware of it at the time, but certainly now, it was a late start to get involved with travel ball at 13. So had to play a little catch up. It's easy to be a really good player in your own small town, if you will, but once you start traveling, you realize there's players out there that have been taught at a very young age how to play the game and play it well. So once I started to eat all that up, there was a bit of a curve there, but luckily I was able to catch up.
So, and now you sit here, in your home that you share together, and this is something that I will say from the perspective of Colin and I, along with our travels, we've also probably given off the impression that we're sort of quote unquote together, together, just given how often we travel together and
like properly.
Yeah, properly. and so, I think, a joint Christmas card that we put out like roughly a year ago probably didn't hurt creating that impression, but you two are like a legitimate couple, a married couple with children. So can you tell us the story of how you two initially met and how soccer kind of played the role in connecting you two in the first place?
Yes. So I'll start by saying, that small town, we had a company called Sports Endeavors, better known as Eurosport. So anybody who played soccer in the 90s, would get a catalog in the mail full of just awesome product and stories and pictures. And
the most exciting part of the best day of the month. Exactly. Eurosport was the best.
So that huge catalog was in my small hometown, and everybody worked there. Just like everybody made the soccer team, everybody worked at Eurosport. So my mom worked there prior to me in the call center, customer service. And then once I turned 16, I got a job. I started working, taking orders over the phone. it was great. You could work very easy schedules around school. So I worked there through college, worked, all the time after college. And so at some point I worked in team sales, and, so I helped club managers, coaches get uniforms for their teams. And it took, some more time than just regular phone call. You were on the call with people for a while looking for the right sizes, colors, brands, all of that. So this is where enter Jason.
I feel like I
So
always
Jason,
have to tell, my part of the story, and I don't want to come across as defensive. It's like I have to tell it thoroughly to put the listeners, if you will, whoever we're telling the story to, in my shoes, and kind of understand where I was coming from, so I don't come across as quote unquote that guy. So this is 2003.
So pre-internet,
before kind of online dating,
fast internet.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Exactly. And long story short, I had just finished school, and I had a major back surgery, full disc replacement, and had some time on my hands. I remained a soccer fan, but had gotten away from playing. And my hope was the surgery is going to work. I'm going to be able to play soccer again. I'm back close to where I grew up. Let me put some of the guys together from back in the day and start a men's league team. And I figured I would coach a little bit and then become a player once I was all healed up. So I called Eurosport. Again, like you guys said, always loved that catalog. It was like, candy in the mail, right?
Yeah.
That's right. So called, I got Sylvia on the other line, back to, slow internet. I wasn't ordering one uniform in a large. It was, I need this uniform in this color, 12 larges, 4 extra larges, 3 mediums, right? In royal blue. And she would type that in, and it would take 7, 8, 9 minutes for it to load. And she would say, nope, can't fulfill those orders, and, in the Puma in this color. So, okay, let's try the Adidas uniform in this color. Type it in, 12 minutes to load. And we just would small talk while the computer was loading the uniforms. She had a great voice. She mentioned coaching Special Olympics soccer, just strong character. And got off the phone thinking, all right, I know you're laid up and don't have a lot going on. And I was telling myself, you're not this guy, but dude, I think you have a crush on this girl that, you just talked to on the phone for 45 minutes.
Okay, so the first one was 45 minutes, which probably how much of that 45 minutes was the small talk versus the actual ordering?
And what was the small talk, if you remember?
it was probably, oh, do you play soccer? I had just finished college also. So I was actually waiting to graduate. I was doing an internship, waiting to graduate, working. And so, I had a lot to look forward to and excited about. But yeah, it's just, you just know conversations just couldn't come easier than others sometimes. So
Sure.
I feel like I was picking it up, what he was putting down.
What I was putting out. That is a good question. I don't remember the specifics on the small talk, but I'm sure it started with soccer and kind of went from there.
And it was like August. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So
Sylvia, would you also use the word crush to describe the feeling you had after that first 45-minute call, or were there subsequent calls? Take the story a little further. I don't know.
Yes, there were subsequent calls, and oddly, Jason would call. He had my extension, and he would call to check on his order or to order more things. So there was more phone calls, order more things.
Yeah.
I need a warm up. I need some new boots. So after a few more calls, those feelings had progressed a little bit. But again, this was, going against the grain. In 2003, it wasn't kind of necessarily normal to meet people this way. So I just put out there a little white lie that some friends and I were coming down to watch Duke. I knew she lived near Duke. play in like a preseason soccer game or something like that. And I said, if can you recommend some good restaurants, a hotel? And I thought if she answered the question and that was it, then I would let it go. But if she was like, hey, and sure enough, she was like, that's wonderful. Some friends and I can definitely show you and your friends around town, etc. So that was kind of the opening for me to ask her for her cell number. And then we started talking, outside of work, if you will, from there.
Yeah, because when you're starting to meet someone, you want to make sure that it's a two-way street, right? You want to be able to see if that person's reciprocating on what you're, like you said, what you're throwing down. So the fact that she was interested and open to be able to meet up with you, even though at the time she didn't know it was a white lie, but you needed motivation to come down to North Carolina. So
always got to do a vibe check.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, check.
A good way to put it, precisely.
So you get a pause, you get a green light to go to North Carolina because you're feeling like that vibe check was a success. So what do? Do you go down there with your friends or do you go solo? What happens?
So
and real quick, can I add a quick question to the top of that? What
sure.
number call was that? What number call was the vibe check?
So that was probably like our third, maybe fourth call. Right. And I had a good girlfriend here in Maryland that was telling her, keeping her up to speed with what was going on with Sylvia. And she was, hopeless romantic. She said, no, you have to pursue it. You have to pursue it. So she was the one who kind of encouraged me to do that gut check.
Not a girlfriend that you were in a relationship with, but a friend who was a female that you were gaining advice from. Okay, I was going to say, I was like, man, that is a really open-minded girlfriend. Right. You're like,
I like this one better, so I might be leaving you. You give me some feedback. No.
Very progressive. Very progressive.
Right, exactly. So that was a white lie. We had no plans to go down there because she was receptive. I was, in fact, hosting a party, and I invited her to come up for the weekend to go to the party and just kind of hang out for the weekend.
And I was thinking, I'm not going to Maryland for a party. Like, what? That's crazy. But by that time, we were talking every night, hours, just about everything and anything. And
right.
So we really did develop.
On an 800 number? Kidding.
Good one.
So how long?
And this whole time, this is probably about 3 weeks of talking every night. And then I invited her to the party. Mm-hmm. We did not exchange pictures or anything like that. So when she said she was coming up, I think we were both hopeful that there was a physical attraction, because certainly there's already an emotional bond there.
So that leads to my next question, which is, when did that first moment where you met in person happen, and what were your first impressions in person? Because like you said, you already created that emotional connection, but you had not seen each other. And this is not in the days of like looking at superficial photos of people on the internet and Tinder and dating apps and all that. So explain that. That's a pretty unique element to this relationship.
Right.
Or the start of this relationship.
Yeah, I had a girlfriend. We drove up together, and the whole time I was like, I can't believe we're doing this. This is so much fun. Like, wow, it's crazy. And so I remember meeting you for the first time, and I always looked at each other like,
mm-hmm.
like I can't believe we're actually seeing each other now.
Yeah.
And it was a little surreal. It was cool.
I agree. It was definitely surreal. Her and her friend pulled up in the driveway, got out of the car, and I'm waiting, for one of them to talk. I said hello because I don't know, which one
it is.
Friend, right? So just, and then
do not kiss the wrong girl. Bad for
right. So, and it took a little while because it was so used to just the voice, and then to finally have the visual with the voice. So
the question is, Sylvia, does your friend have a similar voice to you? Because you could have really played this out into a pretty weird situation, but I mean, this is also your first time meeting him, but granted, I would assume, Jason, you were like waiting for her to arrive. Obviously, two strangers to a party that you just are hosting. Being a good host, you want to make sure that they feel comfortable coming in. But that must have been a very interesting first interaction.
Mm-hmm.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. And I actually had a couple, had some friends there with me. Again, I can remember standing in the kitchen and, we were talking and it was just,
We just kept staring at each other. It was like, wait, you talk, now you talk.
Right.
Let me hear you. Let me hear you while we see each other.
That's right.
Was it a good party?
Yeah, it was a good party. Had a good friend's band play. We are convinced to this day that we were roofied or something.
No.
I'm athletic guy. I had like a drink and a half, and I was just out. And then Sylvia was too, which I guess adds another element. I mean, literally our first night together, we were
puking in a trash can.
It was horrible. But
oh no.
Yeah.
Maybe those
sort of
are
sounds
just
like
butterflies coming out.
Right.
This sort of sounds like another version of like The Hangover. They're like someone actually they wanted to get something that was going to ease their nerves, but they realized it was a drug. And
I should clarify, it wasn't a party at my home or something like that. It was a party amongst, there was other people there too. It was at a club or bar situation, so it could have been at anyone.
You organized the group.
Knew. What's that?
You had organized the group in this
exactly
space. Gotcha.
In a public place. Yep, that's right.
So
but when you're in a really, really bad way like that, and you have hopefully you're not alone, right? You have someone there with you. In this case it was Sylvia, and I was just so used to the voice, right?
Aww.
It's dark, it's just that, and she's kind of, now she was hurting too, but we were kind of both coaching each other through it, if you will, right? So that was just, it brought a lot of peace, to have her there and her voice, you wouldn't have chosen the night to go like that, but there's some irony in going through that together right away. So
yeah, there are some strong bonds to be formed in moments of tragedy, I think.
Yes, exactly.
So Sylvia, I want to get your perspective. The first date made you sick, literally, but how did things go on after that? What were some of the next steps?
Great. It was Annapolis. It was the boat show weekend. And so, downtown was just packed. It was beautiful. It wasn't cold. It was the first weekend of October. And so it was just so exciting to be together. Again, I guess it really wasn't that long, but we felt like we had known each other, gotten to know each other so well, so quickly. So to be able to just hang out was pretty cool.
And after the first weekend, I imagine there were subsequent weekends or subsequent rendezvous.
I think you were in North Carolina the next weekend.
So. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. So you continued to travel to see each other.
We did. Two very different travel methods. I was more talk radio, stop every hour like clockwork because of my back. And Sylvia was, she'd get in the car, she'd drive 5 hours without stopping once, more into her music.
I'd stop and get cookout on the way. There's a cookout, right?
Cookout.
Right.
Yep.
After my town, so I'd get the combo, with the 5 things in the combo and drive.
Does everyone know cookout? I guess.
I know cookout, but
okay.
I'm in the mid-Atlantic area.
Yeah, I only know cookout because my brother went to UNC Wilmington, and so when we visited him, there were cookouts there. Yeah.
Good place.
Shout out to cookout.
Probably been in the same cookout, I would assume. Shout out to Cookout. Happy to take some sponsorship.
Vicarious sponsor of today's episode is Cookout.
Sweet tea and corn dogs and barbecue. So there were lots of drives. And this was October. I think you came to my friend's not big, but my New Year's party that I always did with friends, just at home, at a house, hanging out. So, very quickly got integrated with each other. I kept working. I was working at Eurosport still, so taking orders and
Yeah. So
telling you.
Sylvia, you continue to have that relationship with soccer, I guess. I want to know, or let me ask, how did soccer continue to play a role in your relationship as you were quote unquote courting each other? Did it contribute to the development of your relationship, or was it kind of like that initial entry point, and then romance took it from there?
A little bit of both. My degree was working with kids with disabilities, and so coaching Special Olympics was something that I was doing. Right as we had met. So we did tournaments and even some overnight stays with Special Olympics. One time there wasn't a referee, so Jason had to jump in and referee. But just getting to share that with Jason. The families that I worked with, and just that dynamic is so special in itself. So that was really great to share with Jason. When I would come to visit him, his men's league that he had gotten together would play. So we'd go watch. I'd go watch that, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Um,
And
it added to your relationship in a way. It wasn't like it just was the impetus, but it was still a part of both of your lives. And then when you became a part of each other's lives, you both shared those elements of soccer as well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And going to visit her and going to her work, going to Eurosport, walking the hallways, seeing signed memorabilia by some of the best players in the world. It was just, all the gear, things that weren't even out yet.
My mom worked in the photo studio, so she always got to see what was up and coming. So
that's so cool.
I'm a little jealous.
Awesome. I know, that's really cool.
Yeah, that was pretty rad.
So the timeline, you were, at first it sounds like it was almost every week or weekend one of you was making the trip.
Close to every weekend. Yep.
And how long would you say that kind of lasted for?
So if I take you to late December or early January, so we're dating about 3 months now. And this was a big part of our relationship. So, for whatever it's worth, you kind of have your checklist. This was my thought process, and I'm, she's pretty and she's smart and she's outgoing, all those different pieces. But there was only one issue for me at the time, which was she had all these stories about being a normal person in their early 20s and having a lot of energy and kind of go. But whenever we were together, she just wanted to watch a movie, right? Just kind of relax, be really low key. And in my mind, I'm going like, something's not adding up. Like the person that has these stories, and then when we're together, I was like, for lack of a better phrase or term, is she lazy? Like, what am I missing here? And towards the middle of January, she called me one morning and said, I woke up and I have a lump on my neck. And long story short, she had lymphoma, stage 4. Of all the cancers, that's certainly more treatable than many others, but it was stage 4. So certainly that her treatment played a role in how often we got to see each other and travel and all those different pieces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna ask Sylvia, like, how did that make you feel, like, in that moment, like being diagnosed? And we've talked about this on this podcast. I've also had lymphoma as well, so there's a lot going through your mind. But as a young adult, as you're just recently starting a relationship, and you said earlier, like, you had so many things that you were planning to do coming out of college, and you had all these kind of aspirations, and all of that kind of gets put on hold to make sure that you can get through it. And so how did it feel just generally in terms of where you were in your life, but then also specifically with Jason?
Right. It was super confusing because, I was so active and loved doing so many different things, but also hadn't been feeling well for kind of a long time, and looking back, it's like, oh, that makes more sense now. Why I was so tired and didn't have a lot of energy. So once the diagnosis finally came, it was so surprising. I was very lucky to, have super supportive family, parents, siblings, live really close to a good medical center, several medical centers. But But yeah, the dynamics and, trying to figure out a new relationship was hard. I was kind of like, if this is too much, we're long distance, it's pretty major. I don't know how things are going to go, don't feel obligated to stick around. But there was never any question. Jason was so in it. And I don't think it was ever a thought to like reconsider.
Yeah,
anything.
It really wasn't. We were in it at that point.
Which was fast, but yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. Interesting is maybe not the word, but you mentioned, the first night that you met, you both were like sick and had to take care of each other, and you just had met and you didn't really know much about each other other than, the phone calls, but you both were there for each other. And it sort of feels a bit foreboding where it's just like, there was no question. It was just like, no, this person's going to be here and they're going to support me and we're going to get through it together. And I think that's really beautiful. So how do you feel like that? I mean, obviously there's a very big turn on the path that you both were creating. How did that further impact the relationship when, the commuting or how often you'd speak or see each other? I mean, how did that change?
Right. I mean, I guess it kind of revolved around, treatment schedules and all of that. At the beginning, it was a little easier to be mobile and travel. But, towards the middle end, not a chance. I even got hospitalized in Maryland for a week. It was Memorial Day weekend. I was up visiting and got admitted for a week. And so after that, there was just no traveling at all. So Jason had to come see me. And, I think I kind of forget, too, that he was on, recovering from a major, major medical issue, too, that, doesn't get as much support or recognition, or not recognition, but support, as cancer. But it was equally as traumatic. And so for Jason to just not drop everything, but adjust his life, to my schedule of my needs, was pretty amazing.
And you pushed yourself a little bit. I think you had mentioned before that there were times where you really wanted to see him and you maybe compromised taking care of yourself. And that's partially why you got admitted when you went to Maryland. And so what was your family's thought on this whole thing? Like, obviously wanting to make sure that you were healthy, but at the same time, like, were they also cool with you driving 5 hours to go see Jason when you were, between treatments, or how did that sort of play out?
It must have been hard for them to navigate too, because, here I am, a young adult who needs to be independent, but can't really be.
Right.
So it was just a lot of trying to figure it out and not really knowing any other younger people with cancer was very challenging. Going to the clinic, everybody thought the patient was my mom. And so but navigating that, I think my family just wanted to see me happy. And so they were very supportive. They drove up, that night that I got in, and my mom slept on the hospital bed. I think my parents slept at your mom's house. And so it was just, created more of a time to bond and to, strengthen those relationships.
I think that, not that we didn't appreciate the enormity of the situation. On the one hand, we did. On the other hand, I think perhaps in a good way, maybe we're a little naive in that our lives didn't completely stop when Sylvia got sick, meaning we were still so excited about our future. I was self-employed and starting a career, starting a business. And, it wasn't like, let's stop everything because Sylvia's, it's like, wait a second, we're going to want to have our own home and our own family one day. And it's like, you have to keep earning. You need to get after it, right? It wasn't, come down every weekend necessarily as much as we wanted to be together. And that was probably part of the thought process with her pushing herself sometimes, knowing that I had to be here to work. We still wanted to see each other. And, something had to give.
It accelerated your relationship a lot, it seems. And it made you have to kind of think about a lot of maybe bigger topics and conversations and decisions to be made earlier in a relationship than most people probably do. I mean, often, there are people that are in relationships that never have to navigate something as serious as this. And so you both were put through a lot of tests early on, it sounds like. So where did you kind of go from there in terms of, you were visiting each other? I would imagine near the end of your treatment, the types of visits were mostly just being next to each other, right? You weren't going out on dates or doing anything super active, right? You were probably just being beside each other. So then there's the next chapter of that relationship, because obviously it was a success, the treatment. So tell us kind of about that next chapter.
Yeah. I finished treatment in August. Still lived, didn't move up to Maryland right away. Lived in North Carolina, worked for another year. But we got engaged over Thanksgiving weekend of that year.
So that would have been about 3 months after she had finished treatment.
And about like a year and a month or so since you had first initially met.
Yeah, that's right.
Since the first phone call.
Since the first call, exactly.
Okay,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So that point, preparing for me to move up here and.
Jason, I feel like
planning the wedding, obviously.
Jason, I feel like you had mentioned something when you and I had kind of touched base on this. I think I made a comment regarding how soon, like how quickly that is. And I'm sure a lot of people in your life was like, well, that's really soon. And I think you said something along the lines of just like a lot of what we've been talking about, which is you just have already gone through a lot of different things together and you just knew. Can you kind of just explain that a little bit more, where you didn't think to yourself, well, let's give it another year or two, or, you were just like, I'm ready. Like, and what kind of inspired that?
Yeah. And I don't think everybody's different. All relationships are different. I certainly don't fault anyone that has a different course or different path. But yeah, I think, whether Sylvia gotten sick or not, whether we lived in different states or not, and had to do the long distance thing, we just clicked immediately. And then you throw that in with the fact that the treatment, the illness, the treatment, and living so far apart, I just think it amplified everything to a decision of, if it's right, let's not waste any more time. Let's get this started. So it was a easy decision to make.
I love that. Okay, so you get married, and I'm going to skip over all the really big parts because there's a lot of, not skip over, but you get married, you have some children, you have three daughters, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So now you are, and you said 2003, so you are 21 years in, is that right? Moving into 21 years into
together, and then
together?
18 married.
18 married.
Mm-hmm.
So congratulations. That's an amazing accomplishment. So how does soccer play a part of your lives now that you're married and you have children, right? That's a totally different ball game, right? When you're young and you're out of school, there are hobbies, there are interests, there are things to do, but then you have kids and it's like some things need to go and some things need to shift. So how does soccer, the thing that we kind of have already established as the impetus to you both meeting, how is that a part of your lives still?
And how often do you have to tell them that soccer.com used to be Eurosport?
Right, exactly.
Good question.
Second half of the question, but Mike's half first.
Nice.
No, soccer is very, very much a part of our lives, and it's so fun. It's just great. It's so much fun. 2 out of our 3 girls play pretty competitively. They practice and watch, and it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, across the board. So 2 out of our 3 girls play. I'm currently coaching one of the 2. Likely we'll be doing some coaching with the other daughter as well. She's going to start playing travel club ball either in the spring or the fall. My brother coaches. Both of his sons, our nephews play. Our niece plays. We have our old man pickup league on Sunday mornings here locally, which has been great. Big Barca fans, Messi fans, Argentina fans, Miami fans, anything that Messi does, and we'll always be a Barca fan. But it's tough with the kids and schedules. But we do belong to the Barcelona Pena in DC, which is about 30 minutes from Annapolis. So we'll make it up there to catch a game when we can. But it is, a big part of our lives for sure.
We're about to start the second season of the Annapolis Blues. So it's a minor league team here in Annapolis, and last season was amazing. It was so great for our city, just lots and lots of fun. So we're really looking forward to that. We are the girls soccer team tailgates at the games, and they go in chanting, and their jerseys, and the players come out after the game and talk to everybody. It's just the coolest. It's the coolest thing. One player already signed with MLS, and so that's exciting to just see the progression and show these younger kids like, hey, you work hard, like you will go places. And but just having that exposure to games, because we don't travel far. We'll go to DC for games. We've gotten lucky to see some international games in DC. So whenever the opportunity is close by, we'll jump on it. But as far as traveling like you all do, we just haven't made that opportunity for ourselves yet, and hopefully we will one day.
Right.
But just really loving where we live, taking advantage of the opportunities that we do have, and just sharing soccer, with our family and making it just a fun event. And they learn too. We had watch parties for the World Cup, and our girls soccer team was like, "Hey, this player should be doing this, and why did he do that?" And so it's so fun to just see the girls grow and learn. And
very loud when you get 17, 12-year-olds.
Oh boy.
Very loud, but a lot of fun.
Yeah. I consider myself fairly well up to date on the U.S. soccer scene, but I'm about to learn something right now. What league is the Annapolis, or do the Annapolis Blues play in?
I should know that.
Yeah, it's minor league, and I want to say
USL.
I'm not sure.
What is the name of that?
How would I find out?
Well, we'll have to do some research.
Yeah, they play at the Navy Stadium
in Annapolis.
It's so fun.
National Premier Soccer League.
The NPSL. Gotcha.
NPLSL. Yeah. NPSL.
Was this the first year of conception for that league? Or did Annapolis just join? I don't think that league's been in existence.
2022. It founded in June of 2022, it says.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I knew it was fairly new.
Listeners, if you haven't heard of the Annapolis Blues FC, you heard it here first on the Footy Travelers podcast.
And Kyle Beckerman is an owner.
Hey, what do you know?
Yeah, it seemed like I should probably get down there and see a match.
Oh, you'll come down for sure. For sure.
Yeah, would love to meet up. Absolutely.
And the kids then have their favorite international players and teams, and so it's fun to hear the kids talk about their players, and they all have jerseys, and I don't know if everything was accessible like it is now for you when you were younger, but just to see these young kids,
what a difference!
They know everybody, and
we only knew what Eurosport told us.
That's right. That's it.
That was my exposure.
It's amazing. It is amazing how much that's changed. And my nephews and niece, constantly rocking jerseys at school and warm ups and
nice,
all that good stuff. Yeah.
I love that. That's one of my favorite elements of it is not just the merchandise of it, but the culture of it, right? We talk about a lot of the culture, whether it's the accessibility to watching more matches and learning more about players, or different languages of it, and just being able to meet more people through the sport, whether it's players that are from other international places, and you meet them there, and I think that's one of the things that's kind of so beautiful about what you mentioned is like soccer's still a part of your life, even though you're not necessarily traveling far distances to go see it. You're still interacting with parts of the world that maybe when we were younger, we didn't really get that much. It was more from a distance. Like if you were lucky enough to get, Fox
Yeah.
Sports Net, you could
Yeah.
maybe watch some European soccer when you were younger, or like you'd look at the Eurosport and have a connection with, a player just because they were wearing something cool. Now the accessibility is just, it's crazy. You can follow them online. You can watch them play, at local matches, and then the TV access is just also just so crazy.
That's right.
Yeah.
Listening to Ray Hudson call games over the years was, that was the epitome of, everything for me. When he was calling La Liga and Messi, Suarez, Neymar were together, that was it. Special time for my family and my brothers and I, and it was amazing.
One of the iconic voices.
So, being that this is partially a travel podcast, but mostly centered around the sport, which clearly there's a lot of love for this sport in your family. But what is your next footy fueled chapter of this love story? What is going to happen? Are you going to be traveling more with your daughters, getting into more, travel leagues, or are you planning to do any trips that incorporate soccer? Kind of what's the future hold?
Yeah, I mean, any opportunity that presents itself, we will jump on. What would you suggest? I mean, what is a city that's, accessible or, family friendly, for a family trying to travel overseas, to an international game?
That's an excellent question.
I will say the last place I've been to, the impetus of the trip wasn't soccer, but it was a family trip, and I did incorporate soccer into it. I actually got my in-laws to come with me to the FA Trophy and FA Vase finals at Wembley in London.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, speaking from a very Anglo perspective, traveling from America, the US, as an English speaker, going to London is pretty easy and straightforward. So that might be a good foray for a family trying to go international first. And then from there, a lot of Europe is probably well infrastructured enough. I know we're looking at the Euro 2024 tournament and taking the train through Germany to get around. And it seems to be, pretty easy to do. So.
Sure.
And honestly, this is maybe a tune that I wasn't going to sing maybe 5 years ago, but the MLS is growing so amazingly, and it is such a great confluence between American sports and European sports.
Mm-hmm.
The stadiums are built in these beautiful ways. Some of them are still old ones, and they're not maybe soccer specific, but we've been to a handful of soccer specific stadiums that are really they are family friendly. They are very accessible. You don't have any of the language barriers issues. You're still doing it domestically, but it still feels, when you're in the stadium, feels like it has a European atmosphere because it's loud and it's exciting and it's high energy.
Sure.
So I've been I used to maybe poo-poo the MLS a little bit back in the day because I was like, no, there's nothing you can recreate that could be that's Europe, right? Like going to a match in England or in Germany or in Italy or Spain, you're not going to recreate that, but they're doing a pretty good job of it. So, I mean, if international is not what a family that's interested in trying to go get a soccer experience is maybe a little bit too far-fetched, the States have a lot of it. And I totally I've been more interested, honestly, in the domestic matches recently, just because it feels a bit safer in some instances.
Sure.
It feels just a little bit more local and homegrown. So, because I've been to some international places that I wouldn't recommend you to go watch with your family.
I am that. Sure.
So yeah, that's.
And there were some images from St. Louis during their inaugural season of, a dad, at least I presume it was the dad of this child, but a dad holding up his baby with the big noise canceling earphones in the supporter section, just having a great time. During maybe their home opener. So if you want to go and balance the family friendly with the really crazy European atmosphere, go to St. Louis.
That could be the spot. Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Did you go to women's games?
Yeah, so we
Sure
we
do.
went to our first Women's World Cup this summer. Well, last summer in 2023, to Australia and New Zealand, and supported the U.S. women there, and that was eye-opening and amazing, and something that I think we are now locking into being a consistent, at least that tournament, a consistent one for us to want to go to. And honestly, speaking of family friendly, and that's probably my first biggest difference between, and we've said this in a couple other episodes, the biggest difference that I saw between a men's World Cup and a women's World Cup while there is the family friendly level is so much higher for women's than in men's. Not to say that the men's is like at all dangerous. It's but there's less contentiousness.
There's more testosterone. Just leave it there.
Yeah, exactly. And so the women, I mean, there were we met a lot of families, and like, I don't know, aging from 6 or 7 year olds going to matches to, you know, older, you know, we met some middle-aged women who brought their mothers who were like in their 70s, 80s. And it was still just very accessible for everyone. And it was very positive. And so I loved it. It was a really cool change of pace for what we were used to. And also helps that the US is typically better for the women's game than the men's game. So no, we love it. Colin went to the NWSL final in San Diego this year.
I did.
Cool.
That was quite a game as well. Very exciting. Well attended. It's on its way. Women's soccer is USL is starting their own women's league below the W League. I think they have now. There's going to be the Super League. So there's kind of 2 levels of women's soccer now in USL. Yeah. Hop on board.
Yeah.
Yeah, our girls, will watch. There was something, about the women's team, so again.
The documentary on Netflix recently.
So again,
we were in it.
We were in it.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You didn't see Mike screaming in his onesie?
Yeah. I've got the onesie and
episode 3.
Episode 3. I've got 2 appearances in it. It's my it's my claim to fame. But that was a great documentary. Loved it.
It is, yeah, absolutely.
Well, again, just making the players relatable and like you feel like you know them, and so that makes the kids, want to watch it more, and they're more invested, and so it's really cool. It's really neat to see it evolving and being a part of it.
It is in my opinion, the women's game is a much more of a space for everyone. And I think the women's players are I would say by majority are just better role models. I don't mean to discriminate against like the men's players, but I think there are a lot of men's players that I sort of am like, you're an amazing player, but if I had a kid, I don't know if I'd want them to look up to you. Where I feel like there are so many women's players that are just doing it for so many good reasons, and they have to do a lot more than just be good players. They have to be advocates. They have to be role models, mothers. There's so many other elements. So the game is really awesome, and it's fun that you have 3 girls that enjoy it in some aspect of it, because I think that's going to be this is the best time, honestly, for them to get involved in the sport and have access to it. So that's awesome.
Might prove to be the golden age of women's soccer in the United States. So yeah, good for them.
Yeah.
I'm a little jealous on it. I have so many options to take it in and enjoy the game, but I'm happy.
And I forgot to ask. So 2 things that I do know about your relationship that I think are really interesting and I want to share. First, you have gone back to what used to be Eurosport, is now soccer.com with your children. What was their impression of it? Like, how did you tee it up to them? Like, hey, we're going to go back to where this all started. You 2 wouldn't be here if it wasn't for this company.
Oh, I love it. It's so much fun. When we go back home, there's always places that we stop, and soccer.com is one of them. It's still a big family. I think they just celebrated their 40-year anniversary, and it's still, it's changed, but it hasn't. And that's always a good sign. And, always go back and say hi, and yeah, it's fun to say like, this is where it was. This was my desk. We
go to Bojangles or Cookout. We go to Airmount, which is the venue where we got married, beautiful historic building, and we go to Eurosport, which is, soccer.com, and those are the spots that we take.
And
the
tell
girls.
everyone who spoke at your wedding.
So the owners of soccer.com, the two brothers, gave a speech at our wedding. It was really sweet. They're great guys, and the joke at the end was, we will not be hiring any more single women. So, they got a kick out of that. It was probably the first, it definitely wasn't the first, working couple, but I think we were definitely the first customer employee.
Yeah.
So I don't know,
which plays off a little bit better from HR perspective as well.
Right.
Like, okay, if it's customer employee, that's probably better.
Right.
I don't know if there's any HR rules about that now, but
I heard the website development got fast tracked right after that. Is that true?
Yeah.
They didn't want any more phone
online
calls.
orders.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
The chat bots were there to help.
I do feel like it's funny you kind of talk about the evolution of the merchandise purchasing process, and it's like, if this type of interaction just really wouldn't happen anymore.
No.
And honestly, it's like the responsible, like how you two met was partially through soccer, partially through really slow internet, and then partially like, great timing and fate and like youth intrigue in each other, right? You both sounded nice, and you were in both similar places in your lives. And it's like, man, all of those factors really are minimized for a lot of people now, where everything is just purchased, with no human contact.
That's right. And if you take one of those factors out, we might not be sitting here today.
It really is crazy.
And you're right, today pretty much all of them have been removed from.
Yeah, for so long we would still get the catalog in the mail, and it was just always like, oh, it's just a great reminder. So.
That's awesome. That's so cool. This has been such a cool and interesting story from the moment I heard it, and I was just like, it does fit perfectly into what we're doing with the podcast, because we build these relationships with people all the time when we travel for the sport. And oftentimes they don't yield into romantic relationships, but really long-term friendships or just really great people to build into a network. And so
we're still working on that for you, Mike.
Yeah, I know. Right. Yeah. Still looking for anyone out there that's, fits all the boxes. And I maybe have to make more phone calls to make some merchandise.
Call a ticket office in Spain, and maybe you'll.
Yeah.
There you go. That's right.
Exactly. But no, this has been awesome. We're so glad to be able to share your story and be able to just like hear what kind of fate and destiny looks like through the lens of soccer, which is just like, the beautiful game telling a beautiful story.
Sure.
Yes,
sure.
Thank you.
No, it was our pleasure. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, guys, spending some time and sharing your story and sharing the love in all its various forms.
Sharing the love.
Well said.
Sharing the love.
That's right.